Thank you all. Can I have a motion to approve the current agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the October 8th, 2024 ZBA meeting?
So be it. Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Like to now acknowledge visitors and those wishing to speak on any non-agenda items. And your comments are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Anybody in the audience? Anybody online, Nick? Nobody online. Okay, then we'll move on. First case is number 24-3865, Michael Valentino. Address 1596 and 1598 McNider Avenue. Planning Director Andrea, little background.
Sure. So the property in question is, as you mentioned, 5960 or 1596 and 1598 McNider. It's located on the east side of the Watermark PUD, just south of Cascade. So these are two irregular shaped parcels with an existing home on it. The applicant is requesting a front yard setback variance of 8.7. Let me make sure I get that right. 8.7 feet. So as mentioned, there's an existing property on the site right now. The house is oriented towards the west with the property line for the existing property, putting the existing house 6.1 feet away from the property line. The required setback is 35 feet. The applicant is proposing an addition to the south side of the existing house and is requesting a setback of 26 feet. So this is a minor variance. It would maintain the existing building. They are redoing the front of the house right now. So they have already invested in this home and intend on keeping the home and would just like to expand. We've recommended approval for the reasons mentioned in the finding of facts chart in your
Okay.
staff packet. And then if the ZBA has any questions, I would love to answer them.
Any questions by the members? Mr. Valentino, are you present? If you'd like to come forward, introduce yourself, give us your address and any comments you may have regarding this request.
Michael Valentino, 1596 McNider, also on the adjacent parcel 1598 McNider. The variance request was for an existing, to access the existing lower level penetration through the foundation. So that was the reason. And it is also further setback than the existing house is today.
It's basically just that little vestibule area.
We set the majority of the addition is beyond 35 feet. I believe it's 36 feet. And it's just the breezeway to get access into the existing basement.
Okay, okay, and this is a dead end street, basically.
We are the last house. I
Okay.
believe there's 3 houses. We're the last. In the future, if we develop the 1598, that would be the 4th home.
Okay, so it's not like there's a lot of traffic going by your house there.
Just people that miss the golf course.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Valentino from board members?
Yeah, Mr. Valentino, staff recommend approval with, that's it, but they wanted a condition that you combine parcels 19 and 15 to ensure compliance with the side yard and rear setbacks. Have you talked about that with Andrea? Those conditions?
Danielle did that staff review,
Oh,
and
Danielle
she's
did.
gone, but yeah, from the look on his face, I'm gonna let him answer that.
Combining
Yeah,
1596 and
well,
15.
here's what it says. You know, the requested variance of 8.7 feet for relief from the required front yard setback. Given the analysis discussed above, you know, I recommend approval with the following conditions. And it says the applicant combines parcels 19 and 15 to ensure compliance with required side yard and rear yard setbacks. And I'm assuming they're talking about 1596 and 1598.
Yes.
I just-
Those are the only
yes.
two parcels that we own.
Yeah, and
Um,
I don't see, I was confused by the 15 and the 19 and 15.
The addition wouldn't have any variances relative to parcel 2 on the side yard or the rear yard. So I guess I would be confused, and that is news to me, because the future plans would be to build on 1598.
That's what I thought.
And
That's why
I
I
think,
was
I think
curious.
the only condition that came up in conversation was the barn that straddles the property line. So there's now building that, we had talked about.
Yes.
The condition of building on the second parcel would be eliminating, demolishing the existing pole barn.
Okay,
If the board doesn't mind toggling your screen so that you can see the picture that I have up right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Are you guys all familiar? I probably should have mentioned that in the staff report, that there is a barn existing right in the middle of both properties. And what we had discussed, I think, was actually demoing the barn in advance of building.
Yes, that was the
Unknown.
condition that we had agreed to verbally.
Yeah.
That we wouldn't be able to build on parcel 2 until the barn was removed. I think there was only one other stipulation, was the PUD curve. I don't know if that was cleaned up.
I didn't mention that either. There's some language within the planned unit development that really has nothing to do with this variance,
Okay,
where they had, the parcel is, a sliver of the parcel is located within PUD, watermark PUD. So it's more of an administrative mistake that we as a township should take care of, or should be amended so that a sliver of this parcel.
right. It has
isn't
nothing to do with
included.
Mr. Valentino's request. really.
Correct. Yep.
So are we saying that the condition then should be to demolish the existing pole barn?
I would say that if the ZBA would like to do that, that
If-
would be a
if-
reasonable condition.
Well, if it's straddling both properties and he wants to develop on the other one, is that amenable to you? It was,
It made sense to me as well.
Make-
I
make
mean,
sense.
if,
but okay, I was just confused by the combining of the parcels 19 and 15. That's-
Yeah, that's the parcel number of the last two.
Okay,
So that was what Danielle was referring to, but I think conversely, that just demoing the existing non-conforming structure would be a reasonable
what we have to-
request.
so what we'd really be doing is providing the variance of 8.7 feet for relief. Demolishing the barn because that straddles both properties. And then this combining the parcels, if he's gonna build separately on the one, it makes no sense to combine the parcels. Am I
yes.
seeing this
Correct.
correctly?
And in an ideal world, I don't want to demolish the barn until I have a garage.
Sure.
So it was what I had discussed previously was before we could build on parcel 2, which is unrelated to the addition and the variance, would be then the barn would have to come down to build on parcel 2. Unless you're trying to combine the approval of the variance with the barn coming down, that would be different than I had understood.
Well, it would just seem to make sense, just so it's not an outstanding issue that we pass on. Meaning, if we don't put it in as a condition of approval, as a condition to approve the variance, the barn could sit there forever. And then if you build on it, the other parcel, right? Then we have an issue because,
I guess the question, my concern was if both parcels under the same ownership, why do we even have a variance for a line that theoretically doesn't exist?
So
The question of the variance would come at a later point if he sells parcel 2.
so he's,
Because ownership is the outer perimeter of these. Or
well,
are
they.
these two parcels owned under 2 different entities?
They're owned by the same person. However, we have to look at it as if one could be sold at any time. And the property line that exists right now is he would require the variance.
let me just, so we get this all straight.
Mhm.
Do you think you'll build the garage and have the barn be able to start within the next year? Within 12 months?
My guess would be next year, at some point next year, we would start the addition. At the same time, we would likely be starting the construction on lot 2. Then we agreed that the barn would come down because I can't sit on 2 parcels at a time.
Usually when we ask somebody this, it's just so we stay consistent, we put a time frame on it.
Sure.
Because we've had it before where we didn't put a very strict time frame on it and somebody sat on something for 3 years and the neighbors complained, rightfully so, because we didn't put a time frame on it. And so we just like to put a time frame on it, but we want to make it reasonable, of course. So if it's, if.
I would say, I
everything-
mean, 18 months
18
would
months.
give me a little bit of leeway
Sure.
versus the 12 months.
Yeah.
Um,
Again, I'm going back to, I was just confused about the condition of combining the parcels. And when I saw the look in your face going, huh, then I knew that that wasn't
we-
discussed.
We purchased the parcels last year with the intention of having two separate parcels.
Sure, and
For
that
one
makes
to
sense.
build. That's,
You purchased them as two separate
they are purchased as two separate parcel IDs, yes.
under one transaction then, or?
There was one closing. I'd have to go back and double check. I'm sorry.
I guess
I don't remember.
Andy, I guess I'm lost why the township is viewing them as two separate parcels.
Because they are. I
'Cause
mean,
That's how they're-
like, he could at any
So under the
time
Land
sell.
Division Act, the adjacent parcels are viewed as one until there's a division of the parcel.
This is an official division. He bought two parcels.
Yeah, they're already,
They're
But were
already,
But were they owned by two different people when he bought?
ownership doesn't determine whether they're split or not.
yeah, they're surveyed and defined,
So-
Aaron, as two
Well,
separate.
yeah,
parcels.
surveys is fine, but, so you're saying I could go out and buy a 10-acre piece in 52 transactions and I'd have 52 lots?
No, because you can't buy a portion of a parcel at that point that you tried to purchase it. You would have to,
But
put
by
in your
definition,
deed.
under the land division, it was one parcel. Common ownership is viewed as one parcel,
No. No,
unless something changed from the law of 1994.
no, I mean, you would still, common ownership doesn't dictate. You could own all 10 of those parcels. You can't just sell a portion of a parcel to someone. Because your legal description would then, it would
guess-
go to the county and you wouldn't be able to record it. I mean, these are two legal parcels separate from one another. So I don't know of anything within the Land Division Act that would
Hmm.
mean that two
mean, that was-
contiguous parcels
That's
with the same
completely
owner.
different from what I had practiced in government
I-
decades ago.
I believe they were taxed as separate parcels too.
Yeah, but even tax, and it was, when the law came into effect, it was adjacent parcels under common ownership.
Are-
Simply
are we-
because the same argument of you can have your primary residence in the house and still get the exemption on the vacant adjacent.
That's actually that's why I remembered that the taxes came up because it was done incorrectly and then they made the correction.
But
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that might have implications for taxes or assessing implications. But as far as land use, if it's split, which is something that is approved,
so I guess, so let's delve a little deeper and say if he owns two parcels that are contiguous, why would the township not say redesign the lines to make, because he does have the ability to make it a conforming setback.
well, that would be something that you could determine within your,
But why wasn't that a recommendation of staff?
because the lots already exist.
But the existence of the lot is irrelevant compared to the fact that he owns it both. He's then in complete control of the ability to solve his own problem. I don't know why the township wouldn't have said, shift the lines because this shouldn't be an allowable variance because there is no hardship. You own both pieces. You can solve the setback problem.
You can determine that right now.
Yeah, but I'm curious why
Yeah.
staff wouldn't have said. I mean, there's been numerous occasions in the past where we've worked on shifting
Yeah.
the lines.
I see your point, Aaron, but there are defined parcels here. And I think the easiest way to address this is there are a lot of exceptions, which is what we look for when we provide a variance. There aren't many, as is pointed out by staff, there aren't many situations like this. And there are a lot of unique exceptions with the watermark PUD, et cetera. We're really, normally a setback is 25 feet, 15 on one side, a minimum of 10 on the other, and we're exceeding that. If we're gonna go from 35 to, whatever it is, less 8.7. So I think we're in pretty safe territory approving the variance. But we gotta remove this condition that's currently written down, because that was never discussed with the applicant. But then maybe we could put one in that says, to do away with this potential problem with the barn, demolish the existing barn within 18 months of today's date. Does that make sense? If we don't
Yeah, I still,
No, I understand what you're saying, but it's,
yeah, I guess my interpretation is based on the fact that I sat in government when the Land Division Act was enacted and went through countless hours of seminars through the certifications that this is a case of two ownerships. And there's an easy way to fix that other than going around the required.
and it might be that he wants to keep the parcel as it is because it's more saleable. Rather than cut part of it off to make parcel one bigger, so then he does meet the setbacks.
But
And-
we've done that in the past where one has shifted the line from
Yeah.
this one to that one.
And this has been a long time
Same
since we
thing.
talked about it, but I think that that conversation had came up about shifting the west line of the northern parcel to the west. But then he would have to actually gain some square footage, because if you see that this minimum square footage is 40,000 square feet. And the southern parcel is exactly at 40,000 square feet. So I think the conversation was that he'd kind of have to do one of these, like shift this up,
You
shift
have
this
to Take
over.
from one and add to the
Yeah.
other to
Yeah.
net over 40.
Still possible. Still would be a solution that the ZBA could reasonably consider.
I believe. I don't think it's possible to eliminate the existing variance on that front yard with a lot line shift to the south.
You don't have to, it's an existing non-conforming situation.
I see where you're coming from, Aaron, but I think the easiest solution is to approve the variance with the condition that he demolishes the existing barn within 18 months of today's date, if that makes. If that's something you think is doable, and then so we've got that condition on there.
Sounds like I have to make it doable.
No, but I mean,
Yeah,
we want to make it reasonable, but we don't want to.
sure. When you said 18 months, I assumed that was to pull the building permits for the addition with this variance approved. I thought that the conditional on the barn was for when we built on parcel 2. And
Oh, okay. Well, that's true. I understand. So you don't know when you're going to build on parcel 2 yet.
I'm also a builder,
Okay.
and that would likely depend on the market next
So
year.
we'd want to demolish the existing barn.
But I guess why is the barn coming into play then?
Because it's straddling, he's gonna sell that
But
parcel.
whether he was standing here today or not, it was still straddling the property line. So you're almost enacting an action completely irrelevant to this case.
Then you're saying that the barn should be demolished on sale of the property?
Or at some future point when he then moves forward with another action.
Uh,
This action is not creating the
The need to demolish the
the
barn.
need to demo the barn.
When
He
I
won't
had.
Be able to build on the second parcel with this setback issue at some future point.
It did make sense to me that the barn would have to come down before parcel 1 was, or the second parcel was built on or sold. In a perfect construction world, it's a great facility to store my building materials, and being taken down maybe before a certificate of occupancy or before the sale would make more sense to me as a builder.
Yeah, well, it's pretty, we would probably want it down before the sale, because if somebody's gonna buy it, it doesn't make sense to have a building that you own on their property.
Sure, yes, agreed. If it was the way I looked at it is if it's a custom build, somebody wants to buy the lot, then the barn would have to be gone before the transaction of buying the lot. If I built it as a traditional spec home, which I do, then before I have a buyer, it wouldn't be sold until I was completed with the home. And then the barn would come down
Right,
before it was sold.
but again, so making contingent upon, the demolition contingent upon the sale of the property, you could still build, because you still own it.
That would make
build on
perfect
it.
sense, yes.
And then when you sell the property and or the house that you build on it, then the barn has to come down.
Yes, that makes sense to me.
That makes sense to you, Aaron?
Yeah, I just, like I said, my concern is that we're looking to put a condition on the pole barn. That wasn't necessarily the topic of this.
Well, we're actually putting a condition on.
I mean, you may as well put the condition on then that parcel 2 has to have this 6.7 foot by 5.2 foot shed removed. Because it's a structure on a It's, you can't have the structure on a residential lot.
This is true.
Then you also
He can have one, couldn't he?
Well, he doesn't have a primary
Doesn't have a primary.
structure.
Then you
um,
also bring into the account, okay, on parcel one, you have a small hut and you have a shed in the back and the primary residence in the pole barn,
The hut is gone with the first renovation.
you know. But I mean, it's just that I don't see the value of us discussing the pole barn right now because it's not part of this condition. The condition of your application is 100% the front yard setback. Correct?
Correct.
So you're saying we just leave the barn as it is?
Yeah, because the barn will solve itself at a future point when he goes to add on to, or I mean, build on parcel two or the sale of parcel one.
Sure.
That makes sense. Any other questions for Mr. Valentino?
Oh, by the way, we never formally made a motion for
Yeah.
public hearing. I make a motion to go into public hearing.
Okay,
support.
second. Motion supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. You can sit down, Mr.
Thank you. I appreciate
Valentino.
the time.
Thank you. Anybody want to speak up on this in the audience? Anybody online? Nick?
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Support.
Motion, it's been made, it's been supported. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
So Andre,
Passes.
does that make sense to you that really the barn really has nothing to do with the variance?
I mean, it's always a great thing. This is a chance when the planning or when the zoning board of appeals can
I'd
bring
rather-
the
I think-
site closer to compliance. It's really up to you if you find it necessary.
Right, I'm just saying, is this a problem that we need to resolve now, or will it just resolve itself when the parcel is sold?
I think it resolves itself later,
Yes.
because then we have to look at any and all nonconformities. If we're gonna look at one, we can look at all of them. And I don't think traditionally we've gone in and said beyond what's the topic of discussion tonight, are there any other nonconformities that we need to reel in right now?
Well, due to all the exceptional conditions which are listed in the findings of fact, I move that we approve the requested variance of 8.7 feet for relief from the required front yard setback without any of the conditions that are currently listed.
We have support.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion on the motion made? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Congratulations, Mr. Valentino. Okay. Let's move on. Case number 24-3871, Lakeland Pallets LLC. Andrea, can you give us
This
the
is-
background?
Located at 3700 Craft Avenue. The property is located just south of 36th Street at the end of Craft Avenue. To the south is the airport, northern runway and associated area. To the east, we have forested land. To the west, we have an existing industrial use that's currently vacant and a mining operation. The parcel is 37.4 acres. However, only a portion of that is currently developed. The request today is for outdoor storage, variance to allow outdoor storage to be located in the front and side setbacks. This has not been approved by the planning commission yet. This will go before the planning commission on the 18th, and it's written in your staff review that this would be, that one of the conditions would be approval from the planning commission so that they're consistent. And the applicant can get approval from both bodies prior to operating. Right now, our zoning ordinance requires a 100-yard or 100-foot setback and a 50-foot from the front yard for outdoor storage and a 50-foot setback from the side yard for outdoor storage. However, The site is existing. The applicant has moved into what used to be a Coke bottling facility, I believe, and they're now just building pallets. They haven't changed any of the footprint of the building. They haven't changed any of the concrete located on the site, which is primarily the reason that I made the recommendation to approve this. If you are to drive the site, there's actually areas of vegetation on the southwest side of the property where they are proposing to locate outdoor storage. And there is a strip of vegetation on the south side of the property running all the way across where the railroads connect. So there's really no aggrieved party in this situation, since they are at the end of a cul-de-sac in an industrial area with not much else going on.
Pretty
that would-
isolated.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, and if you look at the site, I'm not going to say there's not other areas that they could locate outdoor storage. They could, but the areas where they could allow for outdoor storage are some of these areas that would actually cause more of a nuisance to the surrounding properties because they're not screened. So this is the most logical place for the storage at this time for their operations, for all the industrial uses that are happening on this site. This is something I'd love to be able to address, at a planning commission level in the future with rewriting the zoning ordinance, where we might have some language that says like, the planning commission has the authority to decrease this so that it's not, it doesn't have to run between two different bodies. And we would be handling it, when we're actually looking at a special
Good.
use. So I find this appropriate for all the reasons given. There's no aggrieved party. There was some conversation with the applicant just before the meeting started as far as the recommendations. And I'd like you to take a look at recommendation 4 that says the applicant agrees to preserve all existing vegetation on the site and maintain all outdoor storage on the existing concrete surfaces. So he had questioned that, and I'll let the applicant speak to that when he comes up, but I had explained, I put that in there because we want this variance. One of the reasons that we're doing this and, potentially granting a variance is to preserve trees, which is a huge priority of the township anyway. So we're using an existing site. We're allowing for a variance for something that doesn't impact anything right now, but if we continue this, if the applicant were later to come and expand their location at that time, this variance would no longer, if they choose to change the site or expand the site, they would have to design their site so that the variance would no longer be necessary. So that's why that condition is put in there. I don't know that I'm explaining that well, but we're giving the variance for now. If they want to expand, I would assume there's no reason that they couldn't then expand their outdoor storage to a compliant area, and this variance wouldn't be necessary.
Okay, any questions for Andrea? Is there an applicant's representative here that would like to come forward and give us your side?
Joel Budbile, 3700 Craft Avenue. Thank you for hearing us tonight, and thank you to Andrea for being helpful during this process. She explained it all well. The only thing that I had questioned to her earlier in the meeting was recommendation 4 about the preserving all existing vegetation on site. So we purchased the property with the intent that we would expand it as time would arise and we would grow the business. We were across the street and we moved across the street because you guys have been a great place for us to work with.
Good.
So we appreciate that. If we were to expand the site, it still would make sense for us to store outdoor materials in that area from an efficiency standpoint. But I am also understanding of the concern raised as to why we couldn't put those materials elsewhere. So I want to be mindful of that, but that how the efficiency of trucks coming in and out, the flow is nice there to be able to unload those trucks and set the material close to where they're being processed. But I do understand the concern as well. So my only request would be to either elide recommendation 4 or to alter it in some way that we have no intent of changing the vegetation on the south or the west side there. because it does provide a nice buffer, but if we were to add just existing hard surface even, we would not be allowed to do that and keep our variance, so.
Okay, any questions for Joel?
I just curious, is the map flip flop? Because when I see southwest on a map, as we look at it, that's that corner right there, right? Exactly. And so this is oriented correctly?
Yeah.
That is the west, okay.
Yep.
And so there's how much about, Mr. Bodbell, how many feet is that tree buffer from the cul-de-sac there at the end? Other way,
Lower left.
lower left, southwest, lower left. Yes, right there. How much about from where those green boxes are there to that cul-de-sac? I'm not sure. What is roughly? Is that like 10
believe-
feet or is it 20?
I believe it was 100 feet from the right of way of the road to
Oh,
that
okay,
hard
okay.
fence
Oh, I
line.
see. There I see the 70 feet. Okay.
So maybe approximately 50 feet, I
Yep,
would say.
yep. Yeah, I didn't see up above the numbers. Yep. That makes sense. That's what I was looking for right there. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so there's probably at least 50 feet there. And
Yeah,
if
I
you-
guess, we should note that now that I'm looking at that. I didn't catch that the cul-de-sac and the parcel moves a little bit. We might want to modify. This area here is actually a little bit closer than
a little bit closer.
the 30-foot variance request that they're asking, because this would still be considered the front yard. Sorry, I just caught that. Do you see what I'm saying?
Are you talking about the side yard now?
No,
This
this
is the
is,
front.
this is the front.
Within the front?
So we've written it so that he's requesting a 29.2 or 30-foot.
But
variance
actually,
request,
the
but-
southern half of it
Yeah.
is significantly larger. by
Yes.
20 more feet at least.
Yeah. And we can even say, a variance consistent with the provided aerials within the staff report. Matching the existing concrete surface.
So the existing concrete surface probably go from the building out to the end of the boxes there, if you'll bring your cursor down, yeah. From there to there is probably about 25 feet? 20?
More than
maybe
that.
More?
Well, we're going 29 plus
There's
another
another
25.
Yes.
So you need to write, we need to write the variance in a way that it is a pure north-south line parallel to the building.
Yeah.
Approximately X number of feet off the building.
That would work.
That way you're not, because on the north half of this, we are looking at 29.2, but on the south half, we're looking at about a 45-foot variance.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I didn't catch that earlier.
That's helpful.
So down here, we need a much bigger variance than this one,
I'm seeing it.
because that is the property line. So yeah,
A 60-ish.
what do you show for a measurement from the surface of the building to the leading edge of the concrete?
And again, this is not,
Not scientific, but
Perfect.
65 feet gets us there.
Yeah.
Plus minus 65 feet with the intent.
maintaining the existing concrete surface.
So we could provide a non-exact variance to a line that is approximately 65 feet from the surface of the current industrial building of record today. That way, you can't grow it 10 feet, 20 feet.
Sure.
But doesn't he already have that? Oh, I see, for storage, for the variance for
Right.
storage. Because
Because-
there's 65 feet right there.
Yeah, but this is the variance request here.
Okay,
But it's a much bigger
Yeah.
variance.
right.
So-
So shouldn't we go from
70-ish.
there to there?
No, we're trying to establish what is this line, so.
Right. It's
Andrea
65 feet.
saying, if we do 29 here, we've got to do something else here, but if we just say off the surface variances, the variance line is 65 feet
Mhm.
off the surface of the
West face.
westerly elevation of the building, consistent in a north-south direction. That will establish a theoretical line,
Right.
and as that.
But this area here, Andrea, where you're going from the building, the west part of the building, yeah, go lower. All the way out to the end of those boxes. That's already concrete today, is that the
Yes.
case?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
That's concrete. And that's the area that we want to provide the variance so they can do outdoor storage there.
Yeah.
Now, the second issue that Mr. Boutwell brings up is if you wanted to remove some trees, is that an issue for later or something we should address now?
so
Because I'm assuming you're saying you might want to expand at some point.
I believe we already said, I think that it would be better just if you want to allow him to develop and still maintain the variance, I would just say that the existing trees in the west and south
Well, the southeast gonna hit
buffer
the
yards
train.
must
tracks over.
maintain, yeah. And I mean, we don't even, technically, there's some question, right, of whether of exactly where this
And what
is. I
that
would
is.
just say,
Yeah, it's a general assumption, because that's,
yeah, it's a on top of a picture, it's lines on top of a picture. This isn't a survey, we're not.
can we do it this way, that if we direct staff to go out and take a measurement from the westerly elevation of the building out to the westerly edge of the impervious surface,
Mhm.
that would establish our
Yeah.
north-south line, and therefore create, that is the limitation of the variance. That direction.
So-
Shrinking.
So basically put some accuracy to give them the variance that they're asking today.
Yeah, I mean, in layman's terms, hey, don't go past the curb. But let's establish a number.
We're
Staff-
watching you, Joel.
Staff goes out, lays the tape on it, and says, hey, this wasn't very accurate, it's 68 feet. Boom, right, 68 feet down.
Yeah, if we want to get that detailed, we would just ask that he provide a survey of the existing
But then
surface.
we're asking them to go spend $1,500 on.
Well, we could say
I-
couldn't we say
Lay a tape.
couldn't we say
This is true.
from the western face of the building to the edge of the concrete? Which is
Yeah,
approximately
the-
65 feet.
Yeah.
The impervious surface that
The
way.
impervious, which is.
Yeah, I think the
approximately
You
65
say
feet.
concrete, it's asphalt.
Okay.
Now we've changed.
Impervious.
I
okay.
know, I
The
know.
impervious
There we go.
surface, the
Boom.
existing
Existing
impervious,
impervious
surface.
surface.
No
Yeah.
dimension.
which is approximately
But they'll-
65 feet.
They'll establish that by
Yeah,
physically measuring it.
And we can
Yeah.
say which is approximately 65 feet.
yes.
Now, so would they have to come back if they want to, in the future, expand it yet again, go a little further west because they need another 15 feet?
Yes, because that's moving the variance, it's shortening the variance even more.
Do you understand?
Yes, there's a pretty drastic elevation change from the cul-de-sac moving
Oh.
east to the building.
Okay.
So we have zero intent of,
It drop
This
it
is-
down.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
of ever pushing that property further west towards the cul-de-sac. It's
Okay.
really just to use the
Sure,
existing
space.
impervious surface
Yep.
It's just
that
red zone
was
right now.
there.
That makes
um,
sense. Yep.
We're just, yeah, it's probably 8 feet of elevation drop. So we have no intent ever or desire to move into that tree line space there that is between the cul-de-sac and our
Okay.
current property.
Gotcha.
So
So,
one other question. So you mentioned this has to go before the planning commission,
Correct.
so that the radius of emergency vehicles will come up as a topic.
Well, it's an existing site with all existing elements.
Right.
Are you talking about for the
Right now, a fire
storage?
truck can drive around because there's nothing there, but
Sure,
the more stuff he stacks there, the
sure.
more they're gonna need to
Yes.
have whatever that clearance is to get.
Yep. Make sure. that
Otherwise, your
that-
insurance is gonna.
We have a fire lane existing there today.
Okay.
so you've seen the conditions then that staff has, 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Yes,
I just want to make sure that we don't approve something that you have a question on later. I want to make sure.
But I don't think we're gonna go off the grounds of.
We're
staff's
changing 2
recommendations,
and
because
4.
That the property line at the cul-de-sac is an oops.
Right, we would,
So we need to redefine our
we would approve the variance,
to a point of,
yeah, to a point of, from the western face of the building, going
Westerly.
west to the end of the impervious surface. Is that what yours? So do we keep all the conditions, there's still number two, limited to 30-foot reduction in the front yard. 20-foot reduction in the south side. The applicant receives the required special use permit from the planning commission. And then since you're not gonna remove any of the trees between the building and the cul-de-sac, does 4 really have any bearing?
I don't believe so. If you're referring to that vegetation, no, that vegetation will stay, as will the vegetation on the south side.
Okay. So we couldn't even specify it. The applicant agrees to preserve all existing vegetation on the west and south side and maintain all outdoor storage on the existing concrete surfaces. And you're good with that?
Correct.
Thanks, Joel. I just want to make sure that,
My only question was about all vegetation. It says on site. So,
okay, yeah, so we'll specify south and west.
okay. And then this isn't a question maybe for the ZBA, which is the number 3, is that a special use permit? I didn't know if you could speak to that on what's required, if that's more Andrea.
That's what we're going to the planning commission for next week.
Okay.
Which is a special use for storing things outside.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Joel? Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion for public hearing?
so the move,
Lou made the motion first,
support.
supported by Aaron. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are now open for public hearing. Anybody in the audience? Anybody online?
Nobody online.
Can I have a motion to close public hearing?
So the move,
Support.
Lou made the motion, Aaron supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, any other comments or discussion amongst the board members?
Just want to make sure we get this right, and Aaron, correct me if, or anybody correct me if I'm going wrong. I make a motion, we approve the variance for this case for outdoor storage from the west side of the building to the end of, going west to the end of the impervious surface, which is approximately 65 feet.
to be determined by staff.
Yep, to be determined by staff with the following conditions, but number 4 modified to say the applicant agrees to preserve all existing vegetation on the south and west sides of the building. And all the storage be on the existing concrete surfaces as defined on the southwest side.
Do I have support?
Support.
Motion is made by Tom, supported by Aaron. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Congratulations. Okay. Any other business?
Anything for December, Andrea?
Yes, we have one item for December, which would be existing, it's a vacant lot in the Watermark subdivision that has 3 front yards and an easement for a drain on the 1 yard that's not a front yard. So
It's
there,
not parcel 2, is it?
no,
Yeah.
no.
It sounds a lot like that.
It does sound, we have debated what the front yard is on on that parcel too as well.
What's the date of the meeting?
Oh, gosh, you guys are asking me all these tough questions. Nick, do you have that?
It's
I feel like- There you go, the 10th. Yep, sorry, I was trying to give you a Christmas present, but these residents with their variances made that difficult for you.
Okay. Any other business? I'd just like to mention having the Model Railroad Open House on that Friday after Thanksgiving from 1 to 5 in the afternoon. And if you need directions or an address, see me after the meeting or just send me an email and I'll send you the invitation.
And I'd just like to add, if you like model trains, this is truly exceptional, not to be missed. It's pretty extraordinary. It's not your typical model train.
It's Michigan
It
history.
took, I think it took Ralph about 20 years to have this whole thing built this. It's incredible.
Thank you.
Chairman Moxley, I would just want to mention that it is trustee McDonald's last meeting.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think, yeah, I believe so.
Okay, I didn't know that. I haven't been contacted yet, so.
I don't know when your last meeting was. I'm pretty sure that it's. When
think
is the
it's-
next board meeting?
But my term, elected term ended,
December.
but that hasn't anything to do with the ZBA.
Oh, okay,
They're unrelated until there are new appointments
okay.
requested.
So I guess,
At some
thank
point,
you for your
the board
service as a
member-
trustee. We'll
Right.
figure out if you're
Right.
gonna be at another meeting, but.
Right.
Hey, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Aaron, supported by Lou. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We're done. Thank you.